Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Resideo webinar session, where we are going to talk about our Total Connect Comfort thermostats, troubleshooting, and app navigation. My name is Fatima Guevara, and I am part of the Resideo training team. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome you to our training session today. Information on our upcoming webinar sessions are posted on our website at resideo.com/webinars. You can find upcoming webinars by searching under the Discipline tab by the title HVAC or Plumbing on the left-hand side of the search bar. So be sure to register. You can find the recorded webinar sessions on this same website by selecting On Demand on the right-hand side of these filters. For those contractors joining us for today's live session and you are interested in earning one NADE continuing education credit, there are a few things to know. If you provided your NADE ID on your registration form, we will submit those details to NADE, and we don't need any additional information from you at this time. If you did not provide us with your NADE ID on your registration form for this webinar, and you would like to receive credit for attending our live session, then we ask you to email your first name, last name, NADE ID, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week from today. This information is submitted to NADE 1 week following the close of each live session. Any request sent outside of 1 week from this live training cannot be processed. As a reminder, we can only process requests for NADE credits when you attend the live webinar sessions, and we are unable to process requests for watching a recorded version of the trainings. If you would like more information about the NADE program, please visit their website at www.nadex.org. One quick note before we begin the technical presentation, all attendees are muted. However, if at any point during the technical presentation you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature found in your Zoom webinar controls. We are reserving the last few minutes of our time today to answer your questions. So as we progress through the technical training today, please be sure to ask your questions in the Q&A feature so we can address it in the end of today's session. So now we're going to turn over the presentation to Duncan Dunleavy, who is one of our product support specialists on our connected homes. So Duncan, we're going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Fatima. Good day, everyone. My name is Duncan. I'm here with Resideo Support. I'm a product support specialist. I've been with Resideo for about 6 years now, and I started on the support lines, taking calls from customers, contractors, distributors, etc., and working on these devices that we're going to talk about. And now I get to work a little bit more with the development teams, the app teams, the engineers, everybody who makes these devices what they are. Real quick, before we get too far into it, I want to make sure that the question and answer field is working. So if you could just quickly identify yourself, if you're a pro or an installer, sales representative, distributor, just an interested party. I just want to make sure that the questions are coming through okay on the Q&A field. Wholesale, okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you all very much. You can keep those coming. That way I can get a good feel for everybody that's in this webinar, but just wanted to make sure that that was coming through first. Okay. So what we're going to cover today is the My Total Connect Comfort devices. Having a cloud and an app doesn't do you a whole lot of good if there are no devices on it. The service itself, specifically My Total Connect Comfort, which is what we commonly refer to as TCC. Honeywell and Resideo have a multitude of apps out there. We're not discussing TCC or TC 2.0. We're not discussing Honeywell Home, except in the context of understanding how these services all work together. We will briefly cover the customer journey, sort of the start to finish experience for the end user. We will cover common troubleshooting questions, both from the device side. So this may get a little simplistic for those with a lot of technical support knowledge or installer experience. And then after we cover the devices, we'll move into the connected services, some of the questions that we get regarding that. And then at the end, after the Wi-Fi questions and connectivity questions, we'll go through a live demo. I've set up a test account for every, it's not even a test account, it's a real account that our service reps use for when referencing all of these thermostats. So we'll cover that experience, and then we'll wrap up with a QA. So first, what connects to Total Connect Comfort? The devices that you see here, the Focus Pros, the green screens on the top left, the Vision Pros, the blue screen on the top right, smart Wi-Fi thermostats, the color touch screen on the center, and then RedLink. The RedLink Internet Gateway provides internet access and control for our RedLink products. So that's the Prestiges. Each of these models, the Prestige looks similar to this one, but each of these models also have RedLink compatible versions out there. One other quick note is that we're not going to discuss line voltage. These are all specifically low voltage controllers. There is a RedLink line voltage solution called the eConnect that's available. If you're interested only in that application, or you just want more information on it, check it out on Resideo.com. Just search by eConnect. So now the application or the service itself, accessible via the web portal at mytotalconnectcomfort.com/portal. If you just go to mytotalconnectcomfort.com, it will ask you which region and area you're in so that it routes you properly. Specifically, we're talking about the North America version today. And then also the mobile application, or TCC, the icon for which is a little red square with the 72 degrees in it. Commonly confused with TC 2.0, which is for our security panels and security lines. Not to be confused with Honeywell Homes, which is the black icon with a little white house in the middle of it. Again, we'll mention those in passing, but this is specifically for Total Connect Comfort. A snippet from the app experience here and a little snip from the web portal, which you'll see in detail. So together, for the end user, they provide basic thermostat control. You get, and I do apologize, I'm going to try not to read directly off of the slides too much, but several of them have points that I want to build up as we go through. So set point, schedule, and alert notifications from any Wi-Fi or cellular source, and integration with third-party smart home apps and products. The web portal exclusively, so the power of this application and service is in the web portal. The app is the easy reference point for users to go in and change set points, change the schedule, look for updates or alerts and things like that. The web portal is what really has the meat behind it. That's where you're going to create or edit the locations that these devices are added to, add or remove devices from locations, add, remove users, and you can really get in and customize these alerts to make the experience as good as possible for yourself, your end users. You can set yourself up to receive the alerts and notifications, you know, as a pro or as a service tech. So a lot of functionality that we'll get into here, but the main ones are high and low temperature and humidity alerts, loss of communication alerts, either locally, specifically for RedLink products, that the RedLink communication is lost between the thermostat and the gateway, or the cloud connection, which is Resideo cloud has lost connection with your device. So that makes it a little bit easier to troubleshoot. You can be notified of any delays and set point changes, alert reminders, and all clear notifications from Resideo. And then customer thermostat alerts, any of those custom alerts that you can put onto your thermostat. The main one that comes to mind is filter reminders. As you move up through our product line, you get access to a bunch more. The Prestiges can give you water leak detectors, frozen coils, all kinds of things like that. So we'll just briefly talk about the customer journey. That journey begins with the purchase and the installation of the thermostat. I am going to touch on the DIY experience a little bit. just to sort of round out the experience. But so the installation of the thermostat, whether it's DIY or by a pro, the connection of the thermostat to the local Wi-Fi or the Redlink Internet Gateway, the account creation and location creation using the My Total Connect Comfort web portal, and then the registration of the device to the customer account. So once it's registered to their account, they're up and running. They can tweak and play with it any way they like, and control it from anywhere. So starting with the devices, we'll cover a couple of the DIY questions. Some of this will be, as I mentioned, very repetitive for the pros or installers, but we just want to round out the whole experience. So by and large, the most common question that we have here in Resideo support is no power or a blank display. The most common causes of which are the jumper between the R and RC connector on the thermostats. For the Focus Pro and Vision Pro models, the green screen and blue screen, that's, for lack of a better term, a small metal staple that goes between those two terminals. On the smart Wi-Fi, it's a loop with a small Molex plug that connects into and links those two terminals. Different models use a jumper selector switch and other things of that variant. But those are the two main ones for Total Connect Comfort thermostats, is the metal staple jumper and the jumper loop on the 9000 series, the smart Wi-Fi's. For two transformer systems, you remove this jumper. For single transformer systems, you put your power wire into the R or RC terminal and leave the jumper in place. Yes, good question. Just came through the Q&A. We will have the Q&A at the end, but please feel free to place those questions in now. We are going to talk about the integration with the app formerly known as Lyric, which is now Honeywell Home. But yes, we'll discuss that once we get to the app portion. Continuing with the no power or blank display issue, the no C-wire present. The C-wire is required for all of our Wi-Fi model thermostats. We did have the Round Smart on the Honeywell Home app, which was released with a power stealing technology. It's not supported anymore. There's still plenty of models out in the field that are power stealing and doing what they need to do. But for now, the application does call for a C-wire if you're talking about a Wi-Fi thermostat. Redlink thermostats may need power at the initial onset and pairing, and then can run off batteries. That will vary by the model. But for Wi-Fi thermostats, blank display is, especially when we're talking about homeowners, almost always C-wire related. The easiest solutions for lack of a C-wire is to locate an unused wire and connect to the C terminal on the HVAC equipment, and then to the C terminal on the thermostat itself. If no unused wire is present or available, the THP 9045 Alpha wire saver is an option for those with heating and cooling systems. It can vary by the application, but essentially what that module does is it takes the Y and G, the compressor and the fan, and it merges that functionality onto one terminal. You can still call for compressor separately. I mean, technically you would want compressor and fan at the same time. So you could still call for fan separately, and the wire saver will do that translation for you using the K terminal, which frees up your G wire to turn that into a C. Not a great solution for heat-only systems. Heat-only systems typically R and W are your only wires present. They do require pulling a new wire for common. More common causes of the blank display. As I mentioned, this is a very big call driver for us here in Resideo. Power is not restored to the HVAC system. There's multiple points where power can be shut off to the furnace or to the power source for the thermostat. So check the system door or the cover. If a homeowner's, typically a homeowner can get in there and move wires around and do what they need to do. We do always recommend a pro support for anytime you're messing with your furnace system directly. Make sure that that door is closed and the safety switch is depressed. check the furnace on-off switch. I'm not overly knowledgeable about local codes, but in every application that I've worked on, the furnace typically has its own on-off switch mounted to it, and checking the circuit breakers. Next one is the blown fuse on the furnace control board or the IFC board. If you remove a thermostat with a C wire and don't turn off the power, it's highly likely, just because of the size of the hole in the back of the thermostat and during the wiring and moving, that you could cross those wires, which if you cross the power wire and the common, can result in a short and pop that fuse. It's an inexpensive fix, but it does drive a disproportionate number of calls. And then the last one, which is the most trouble to troubleshoot with a non-professional, is the electrical short. So measuring the voltage between R or RC in each of the wires. The thermostat's operating range is 20 to 30 volts AC. Higher than 30 volts, in my experience, typically means the transformer is going bad. Lower than 20 volts, specifically if it's on one or maybe two wires, usually indicates some kind of short. Again, just in my experience. Other common call drivers: no heat or no cooling, no fan operation, are mostly caused by either incorrect wiring or incorrect configuration. When we're talking about wiring, there's a multitude of terminals and labels out there, so it's very easy for anyone to get confused when they're matching it up. We typically recommend that they either consult the previous thermostat install guide and check what the function of each of those wires is. They can go as far as to go into the ISU or the programming on the thermostat that they're replacing and copy paste, or I should say write down those settings and then apply them to their new thermostat. But the one that is probably the most foolproof is following the wiring down to the HVAC system and comparing it against what's at the thermostat. That's usually a worst case scenario where they just rip the thermostat off the wall, cut the wires with scissors or clippers, and now they're completely lost. So as always, check the R and RC terminals for proper wiring. RC controls the cooling side of the thermostat and R controls the heating side of the thermostat, to kind of oversimplify it. And the thermostat, the Wi-Fi thermostats, all power off of the RC side. So you can put power wire into RC, not have the jumper in, and your thermostat will power up and control cooling, but it'll never energize the W terminal. So again, just circling back to that jumper. Incorrect configuration: you can review the thermostat configuration and check for dip switches, levers, jumpers, etc. on the previous model. Keep in mind that the system type impacts which terminals are energized during calls. So for instance, if you set up your thermostat as controlling a conventional gas furnace, when it calls for heat, it will energize the W terminal. If you set it up for an electric furnace, when it calls for heat, it will energize both the W and the G terminal for fan, because it knows that the thermostat has to control the fan in that application during a call for heat. And there's a lot of variation to that. Series 20 or power open, power closed, heat pump configurations, all are pretty easy to get wrong, unfortunately. All right, now to some more of the, still a big DIY call driver as well, but for pros as well. Why can't I connect my thermostat to Wi-Fi? In short, there are just thousands of different ways you can set up your network and settings that could impact the connectivity of the thermostat. These are going to be some sort of hard and fast rules, the majority of which I would suspect anyone who's worked with Wi-Fi thermostats is somewhat familiar with, but we'll cover it. So the Wi-Fi thermostats for total connect comfort are 2.4 gigahertz compatible only. The good news is most routers broadcast a 2.4 and a 5 gigahertz, whether it's separate on separate networks with two different names, or dual band on the same network. So a general rule for the thermostat is if you're going through the setup and connection process and you open up your app or you see it as available on the screen of the thermostat, if it can see that network, it should be able to connect to it. If the desired Wi-Fi network is not displayed, Check your signal strength, your distance from the router. Large obstructions can interfere with Wi-Fi networks. 2.4 is the signal that we chose because it has greater penetration and range. We don't need speed. The thermostat sends very little data to and from it, us and the user, but we do need the range. So that's why we use the 2.4 gigahertz network. They can check the signal strength, and then you can start going down the path of, okay, are you sure it's a 2.4 gigahertz network? Remember, with Wi-Fi and networks in general, you're never alone. Not only is Resideo or us, are we a great resource to assist with that, but the internet service provider and the router maker manufacturer all have extensive support materials available for the homeowner. So some general rules: connect one device at a time. Don't put all the thermostats on at the same time and try to connect them all to Wi-Fi. It's tempting to save time, but we always try and eliminate any contention points as we do our troubleshooting. So one at a time. If it does fail to connect power cycle, remove the thermostat from the wall plate for 30 seconds and then reattempt. This is very similar to power cycling your router. So if your internet goes out, the first thing you go down is unplug your router for about 30 seconds and put it back in. A lot of connected devices, routers, gateways, etc., store packets that weren't successfully delivered, and those packets build up over time. So flushing the short-term memory on the device, we're not recommending doing a full hard reset where you have to press an hold to reset for 2 minutes or anything like that and clear out any of the settings. We're just talking about power it off and power it back on to clear that short-term memory. Connect directly to the router. Avoid connecting to repeaters and extenders if possible. These devices are very versatile and they will typically connect to those. But that's another contention point where we don't know for sure if those repeaters or extenders are encrypting the data to send it back to the router, or it's an extra step, so an extra failure point. Static networks that choose their own IP address and don't use DHCP. It is compatible with, but it needs extra steps, most of which we would not expect our HVAC installer, our wholesaler, our sales support to have it off the top of their head. Resideo does have some of those extra steps logged, as well as our endpoints. So what is the thermostat actually connecting to in our cloud that we can assist with, but it will typically require router, internet service provider, or if they have some sort of network support on site. Business or enterprise networks also typically require extra steps. Please refer to the router, the internet service provider, and network support. Again, we have a lot of steps. We work with a lot of small, medium, large businesses with our connected solutions, and I can usually get them on the right track, but it does typically require someone with network experience on site. And guest networks, Wi-Fi networks that require logging into a web page. Specifically, I'm thinking of like hotels where you show up, it says, go to this website, it says to enter your room number and the password that they gave you. The thermostats don't function that way, so we can't support those. Usually if someone is in that kind of application, they already have multiple networks in the building, and we would recommend connecting to another one and assist with that. So that's Wi-Fi thermostats. Now we'll shift gears a little bit and talk about the gateways. The gateways connect with a network cable to the router directly, or to a gateway or switch on the network. So as a wired connection, it is a trusted source. They are commonly installed in larger homes or small businesses where network security may be elevated. If it's not connected directly to a router, which it most likely won't be in a single family home, those internet Wi-Fi or internet routers usually connect right to a Wi-Fi router, or they do both themselves, and they only have 1 or 2 plugs on the back of them. So they typically go into a switch with multiple sets of network cables going out all throughout the house. Those gateways or switches can have additional security, which requires, again, just more support from Resideo, network knowledgeable staff, internet service provider, et cetera. Again, general rules, connect 1 device at a time. Enrolling multiple devices to RedLink at once can cause failures. So we pair 1 device with another device 1 at a time. If you go through and you have 4 thermostats and 1 gateway and 3 EIMs and 4 outdoor sensors, if you put all of that into enrollment and start looking for each other all at once, you're going to have a bad time. So press connect on the gateway, press connect on the thermostat, let them talk and finish, and then go through and press connect on each thermostat or device afterwards. The rig has LEDs on it. Verify all that the rig's LEDs are green once pairing is completed. If they're not, if it has a red LED on the internet light for some reason, that helps us to troubleshoot it before the whole system is up and running. Pair all the desired devices with the gateway before registration. This is another common mistake, unfortunately. When you register a rig, you give the web portal its MAC ID and CRC. It then reaches out over the internet and talks to the rig and says, okay, you're going to this account in this location. What have you got from me? And the rig says, well, I've got 2 thermostats paired with me, or 4, up to 4 thermostats paired with me. If you pair devices to that gateway after it's been registered, it won't recognize those devices. You have to unregister and re-register it before it'll send all the new information. If a device does fail to link, you can purge the gateway by pressing and holding the connect button for approximately 10 seconds and reattempt to connect. Typically, when it fails, you will have to reset the other device that's being paired with the rigs, whether it's a thermostat or a sensor or something like that. There are 4 thermostats per RedLink gateway maximum. So every gateway can handle up to 4, doesn't have to have all 4, but static networks require special calibration, internet service provider, router support, network support if available. Business networks the same. Again, due to the wide variety of networking equipment features and settings available, connectivity can be challenging. We typically don't expect installers to be that savvy with home networks and things like that. That's more the, I'm thinking of the Geek Squad, Best Buy Geek Squad, and your local networking professionals for that kind of support. But we do offer a great variety of support on connectivity. So while we can't come to the home and log in for you and make changes to the network, we can make recommendations so that you can either attempt them yourself or call another network professional. So that's the devices and the connectivity itself. Now about the web portal and Total Connect Comfort itself. Data security is always very high on our list, so we'll cover some of that. The first one being, do I have to create an account to use the Wi-Fi feature? Technically, no. You can connect the majority of these devices to Wi-Fi and never register them. You can't do anything with it at that point. You can't control it remotely, get the updates, etc. So for that, yes, we do recommend creating the account and registering them online for the best experience. Can I make the thermostat share data only with me or set it up on a private server? This is similar to security systems where they want to use, let's say, an IP cam and control all of the video footage. It goes onto their private server, that kind of thing. No, the thermostat is built with certificates and addresses specific to Resideo. It cannot be changed. I'm not aware of any projects in the future specifically for thermostats that would make this a possibility, but we have received this feedback on multiple occasions. So the good news is once you do enroll it, or register it and connect it. You can use these other partner program APIs to control it with other products. So specifically Google Home, Samsung SmartThings, Amazon Alexa. And once you set it up and put that integration in, you technically never have to touch our app again. So if you really would just want to control it with Alexa, you set it up, register it with our web portal, then you go into Alexa, enable the skill, and tell it how to connect with us, and then you control it with Alexa from there on out. What kind of data is being sent back to Resideo? What do we do with it? Please see the EULA for full details. Just as a primary note on this, we don't share any private customer information with anybody. Just for scope, if you bought a thermostat off of eBay and it's still registered to the previous user, you can't call up and say, hey, I need to unregister this. Who's it registered to? We don't share that information with you. The data analytics team always looks at the devices using a user ID, never your email. So we take your information security very, very seriously. All right. I don't know how I missed it, but to answer the previous question in the QA before we start the demo, the question was, can these thermostats coexist with the Lyric thermostats? Lyric was the platform name in years past. It's now referred to as Honeywell Home, but yes, it can. So Total Connect Comfort devices can be imported into the Honeywell Home app. They do have to be set up and registered with Total Connect Comfort first, but once they do that, you can import them to the Honeywell Home app and you can control everything from the Honeywell Home app. That import does only work one way. You can't import Honeywell Home devices into Total Connect. But if you, for instance, had a Focus Pro thermostat and a T5 and you wanted to control them both from one app, you would just log into the Honeywell Home app, click the add new device, and import from TCC is one of the options listed there. And then you would enter your Total Connect Comfort email address and password, and then it would come up with a list of all the devices that you had in TCC that you wanted to integrate into Honeywell Home. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the demo portion here. The login is right there on the screen. You can either download the mobile application onto your mobile phone, or you can just go to mytotalconnectcomfort.com/portal. The login is Resideo2019@gmail, and the password is webinar1 exclamation point, capital W on webinar. And for those that don't want to go through, I will go ahead and bring that up now before we get to the Q&A section here. Okay, so enter that Resideo 2019 webinar 1 exclamation point with the capital W. From the landing page, you can, for a new user, you would go here to create an account. You would enter your email address and a little other information. It would then send an email to verify that you wanted to create the account. Once you click the link, everything gets activated and you can log in. All right, so the main page that you'll see when you first log in, you won't have any locations when you first log in, so you will have this add location button. You're going to go through and add a location. Give the location a specific name, choose if it's a home or a building, enter your address. A couple of key notes about this. We do recommend that you enter in your address as thoroughly as possible. In practice, you only have to enter in the zip code itself correctly. The zip code can impact the weather that's displayed on your thermostat. So if you have one of those smart Wi-Fi's that displays your local forecast, if you put in the wrong zip code, you'll get the wrong weather. Time zone is also equally impactful. If you choose the wrong time zone, you may not get the correct time displayed on your thermostat. And then for those impacted by daylight savings, click that daylight savings button. You can also set up notification contacts. So if you are a engaged installer or building manager or perhaps even a wholesaler, and you wanted to be alerted when the customer was getting the alerts for their thermostat, you could enter your email address here as well. That's strictly for notifications. You'll receive email notifications. Adding a user is a little bit different. So you'll set that up and create it. Once you create it, you'll get locations like these. I did leave multiple alerts on some of these thermostats just for demo purposes. None of these thermostats are connected to a system at this time. So you can crank the thermostat up to 90 degrees or bounce it down to 50. You're not going to make me or anybody else uncomfortable. So please feel free to play with it as much as you like. So from here, we see the location. We can go in and double check that location info here. We can also remove our access. So if I'm setting up a thermostat for end user and I want to do it all myself because I for whatever reason, I can set myself up with it, add the customer to it, and then take my own access away so that it's all done in one swoop. Let's go to the My Account button first. First, My Profile. You can change your information or your password. Account permissions is specifically for customer support. So if you contact us for support, we may ask you to go into the account and click this button. All it does is let us click in and see exactly like what you're seeing here, so that we can go through, and we typically use it to check your alerts, check your schedule. If you notice inconsistencies with things displayed on the screen, we may use it there as well. Also, the add location does the exact same thing as the other one. Location permissions, this is where you can grant other users access to your location. You simply enter in their email. They will have to have a Total Connect Comfort account. But if you enter in their email here, it sends them an invite and says, hey, you've been invited to a thermostat. It's got a link to set up the account using that email, and then they're up and running. You can also select which locations you want to grant access to, which is nice. And then under subscribed applications, so as I mentioned, those third-party integrations before, we have a device in the A-frame location that's paired with a Google Home. We also have one in the A-frame locations that's been imported to Honeywell Homes so that we can control our TCC device from Honeywell Home. Let's go back to locations. So the majority of the devices are in this training room A-frame. We'll go ahead and look at those. You'll notice the bar turns red when there's an alert on the device, just for easy notification. You also can receive pop-up notifications on your mobile app and email notifications when you set those up. So each of these thermostats is differentiated by the model number. So the 6580s are the Focus Pros, the 8580s are the Vision Pros, the older model, 9580 is the older model, Smart Wi-Fi, Prestige IAQ Slim. And you also get this little breakdown of what the thermostat is currently displaying, and then the fan icon on the previous indicates if the fan is running or not. So you can go to menu on here just as a quick click to get into the thermostat menu and see the schedule, the notifications, etc. You can also do that from the thermostat itself or the thermostat card, which we'll go to now. So we're going to go to 8321. That's the blue screen Vision Pro Wi-Fi model. There's a red link in there as well. So notification banner at the top. From here, we get all the basic control that we would want for a thermostat. Change the mode. Let's put it back into heat and set it to Switch between the temporary and permanent hold. We can turn the fan on, and then we just submit the changes. Once you click submit, it goes through to the thermostat, follows along, no problem. From menu, this is where we get most of the functionality for the device, or the remote control of the device here. We can go through and adjust all of these notifications. We touched on them briefly: high and low temperatures, high and low humidities. Let me know if it's communication is lost between TCC and my Wi-Fi thermostat. Let me know if changes that I send to TCC for some reason don't make it there. You can set up how often you want to be reminded. Notify me about thermostat events, heating and cooling system related events. And then you do have to click apply and then submit. Schedule. You can go in here, and I like this interface better than doing it on an app. I don't know if I would just have fat fingers or something like that, but having the bigger screen and the mouse when you're going through and doing lots of small clicks is easier for me, but it does work just fine on the mobile application. You can go through and modify the schedule. For thermostats that support it, one quick differentiator here. TCC doesn't add a whole lot of functionality if the thermostat doesn't already support it. So if your thermostat doesn't have the circulate mode, you're not going to be able to turn it on from Total Connect Comfort. So just a disclaimer, it's only as smart as the thermostat that's registered to it. This is a little bit different from Honeywell Homes, where you can put in things like geofencing. I wouldn't be surprised if we see all of that integration come forward as we continue to merge Total Connect Comfort and Honeywell Homes into, you know, one single experience. But for right now, TCC thermostats are, the functionality is only as smart as the thermostat can be. Also, things like IAQ control. This one is set up to control a dehumidifier. In theory, it's not wired to one. So we can click into dehumidification and adjust our preference here. But if the thermostat can't support a dehumidifier, just adding it to Total Connect Comfort doesn't add in that functionality. So we can change our schedule periods. We can delete extra periods. On certain models, we can schedule the fan and choose which setting we would like to use. So we just set all that up. It hits us with the pending and then uploads it. The schedule is uploaded to the thermostat, which saves it locally. Just a few more things. When we talk about integration with Total Connect Comfort, what happens to the thermostat if it falls offline? The thermostat will always maintain its previous set point. If it has a schedule loaded into it, it will continue to follow the schedule. If it was on a permanent hold, it stays on a permanent hold until it reconnects and gets told to do something different. Can you control the vent enable contact during the different setback and set forward times? That one I'm not 100% sure on. I would have to double check. I don't know if I have a model mocked up with a ventilator connected. If I did, it would probably be the Prestige. It doesn't look like there's one there. I apologize. So the question came through is, can you control the vent enable contact during the different setback and set forward times? So what I'm assuming is, based off of your schedule, let's say, you know, Monday wake, you would want to turn on your ventilator for that period. And then on your leave period, you would turn it off, or on your sleep period, you would turn it off. The answer is I'm not 100% sure, but I will be going to this thermostat after the webinar to mock it up to find out. I believe Honeywell Home has that functionality, but I can't remember if it is controlled via the thermostat menu. So like when you're setting it up, you set it up. So do you want to run ventilation during sleep? And you can choose yes or no. I would have to double check. I apologize. That pretty much concludes the presentation that I have. The demo, by all means, I'll leave the credentials active for another hour or two. So anyone that hasn't gotten a chance can go through and check out the test account, check out the functionality. As I mentioned, I'll pair up that Prestige IAQ with I'll configure it for a ventilator and see what we can do about the scheduling there. Excellent question. So let's get back to the. All right, so we'll go ahead and open it up for any more questions. That pretty much concludes the technical portion of the presentation. So we'll give it a few minutes here, and if there are any open questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A portion of the Zoom meeting here. Absolutely. And thank you all for your attendance. I will pass it back over to Fatima to close. Oops, here we go. I'll get a technical one. Can all stats be merged to Honeywell Home or just the Wi-Fi? So Wi-Fi and Red Link. So if it touches my apologies. The question came through is, can all thermostats be merged to Honeywell Home app or just the Wi-Fi versions? Both Red Link and the Wi-Fi models that connect to Total Connect Comfort can now be merged to the Honeywell Home app, and that is supported. Okay, I'll give it just a little bit more, just in case anything crops up. Okay, we'll leave the, oh, there we go. Test account. Oops, there we go. Oops, a little too far. Resideo2019@gmail.com, and then webinar1 with the exclamation point and capital W. Again, this is full access. This is the one that our agents use to troubleshoot and assist with callers, chats, etc. So please don't delete any devices. But nothing is connected to a system, so you can't hurt anything. In just a sidebar, in another webinar, I had set one up for a Honeywell Home account with each of those test devices in it. Unfortunately, I think I left it a little too open and a lot of the devices got deleted. So I had to reset it all up. So this will be a limited release or a limited test period for this, but in the future, I envision some simulators and resources that so you can test and mock up your these devices, you know, at your leisure. The best way to get to me is through our 1-800-633-3991 number. I'm technically no longer customer facing directly, but our support staff goes up through their channels and can reach me. I'm sorry, that was in reference to, there was a question about contacting me directly about a specific problem. The best way is to go through the support staff. You can name drop me if you'd like, and I will be notified by the agents, but we do have to follow the structure. So. Another question came through, is there a way to set up multiple custom alerts? In my experience, you can only do one custom alert. I believe the custom alerts are limited by the ability of the thermostat itself. I think, if I'm recalling correctly, It's only the Prestige that you can set up multiple custom alerts on. I don't think it's possible on the Vision Pros, which would be the next quote unquote smartest model. But I can double check.
Okay, thank you, Duncan, for answering those questions. It looks like we don't have any other questions. And thank you also for providing another great training today. If you think of a question after the close of this training, please reach out to your local Resideo sales rep or send an email to homes.university@resideo.com, and we will make sure to get your questions answered. Training is something we are very passionate about at Resideo, and we want to make sure you have access to more in-depth trainings on our products. Inside of our online learning platform, you will be able to find many in-depth technical and sales trainings. You can access this online training catalog by visiting the training page on our Resideo Pro website. The first time you access the online training catalog, you will be asked to create an account. And going forward, you will log in into your training account to access these trainings. Currently, we have about 20 online learning modules available, including several modules on our humidification portfolio, the T10 thermostat, and the Prestige IAQ thermostat. These online, these online trainings cover everything from technical and installation details and shows you how to identify the right customer to sell these products. We're very excited to add this online training catalog to our training offerings for all of you. If you're interested in more in-depth trainings, we encourage you to sign up for the Resideo Pro Portal account to access these trainings. Also, if you are a Resideo Perks member, you will receive training credit when you enroll and take these online trainings as well. To find out more information about our upcoming webinar sessions, please visit resideo.com/webinars. And if you search by HVAC or plumbing tabs, you will find the details for our upcoming sessions. Additionally, we record each of these sessions, and you can find those recordings on this same website by filtering for webinars with the label on demand. One last reminder for those contractors who did not include your NADE ID on your registration form, and you would like to receive credit for attending today's session, please send an email with your first name, last name, your NADE ID number, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week of today's live webinar to receive credit for attending this live training. Once our training session ends today, you will be prompted to complete a survey regarding our webinar session. Please take a few minutes to provide us with your feedback on the training you participated in today. We are very interested in your feedback on today's session, and we use your feedback to help us create future trainings. So your feedback is important. Finally, you will receive an email from us in a few days that includes some follow-up information on the products we reviewed today, as well as a link to the website for information on our future webinars. Make sure to join us next week on Tuesday, February 15th at 2 p.m. Central Time for our next training session on our T-Series thermostats, troubleshooting, and app navigation. Thank you all for joining today's Resideo webinar session. Have a great day, everyone.